Hi, folks. Well, the little things you say and do make me want to be with you. Babe, on, it's a crazy feeling. I know it's got me reeling when you say I love you, babe, to me. Well, the little things you say and do make me want to be with you. Babe, on, it's a crazy feeling. I know it's got me reeling when you say I love you. Babe, on, it's a crazy feeling, and I know it's got me reeling. I'm so glad you feel your love for me. Babe, on, tell me, not to be lonely, but tell me that you're only to me. Hi folks, how you all doing? Welcome to the show. It's Rock and Roll Live on a Friday with me, Colin, on my own in a remote location in deepest, darkest East Lothian. So just a wee song there for Buddy Holly. Excuse me while I have a little refreshment. Sadly, Buddy Holly died many years ago on this day, 1958. Hi Caligula, how you doing? Hi Todd. Yeah, a little Buddy Holly to brighten the day. Always brightens the day. Fantastic guy. So got a few things up my sleeve tonight, although my sleeves are not very long. I'm going to have tip of the week. We're going to do a little bit of transcribing because I've got a request from Brexicle for a transcription of You and I Are Through, which is another Buddy Holly song. And also Keith, I don't know if he's on tonight, but he was asking for a wee bit of help with Shake, Rattle and Roll. So we're going to have a look at that. We're also going to do some sort of beginners tunes because there's always people asking me about how do you get started. And so that's probably the first thing we're going to start with. So if you're a beginner and you're new to guitar, if we've got any beginners on tonight, give me a wave. People get very stressed about the guitar. What's that? Hi, Michael. How you doing? You've got your Iron Brew? Chuck Berry, The Broken Arrow. Forgot about that one. I'll have to have a wee look at that. I think I did look at it, but it wasn't very rock and roll. Is that right? I can't remember it. Nige, how you doing? Nice to see you. Hi, Philippe. Can you please talk about how to get a good rockabilly tone? Is that what you're saying? Well, I can tell you a little bit about that just now, Philippe. First thing you should do is know what I'm doing tonight, because the problem I've got in this room, I'm going to set it up in a different room next week because I've not got enough plugs. You need power sockets, and the problem is there's lots of things plugged in, and the sound's not very good here because when I put a pedal onto the amplifier, it starts to hum and make a really bad sound. So I've not got any pedals in tonight. Hi Martin, nice to see you there. All the way from Aberdeen, that's kind of my part of the world. I'm from the north as well. So I'm just plugged into an amp. So one of the sort of key things about getting good tone is actually to get yourself a pretty decent amplifier, which is good at doing one thing. So a lot of the modern amplifiers are amazing because they've got lots of digital effects. But the problem is you can kind of get lost in tone and you can get away from what you're really looking for. Most people are really, if they're into this sort of stuff that we're doing tonight, they're kind of interested in getting a kind of classic rock and roll sound, a kind of vintage rock and roll sound. So I've got here, this is a Tone Master. Now I've done a review of this on my YouTube channel. You may have seen it a long time ago when I got it. It's a pretty reliable amp, very basic. And I like basic things because they're easy. So it's got 4 channels. Now, interestingly enough, on the left-hand side, all you have is volume. You've got volume, treble, and bass. That's it. You don't have any other options. So it's very simple to get your tone. Now, some people get quite annoyed when I say this, but the best thing I find to do with getting your tone set is just put everything in the middle. apart from the reverb on this, because the reverb is quite heavy, but actually I do have the reverb in the middle, funnily enough. So I have my treble at, well, I've got my treble quite high. So I've got my treble at 7.5, I've got my bass at 5, got my reverb at 5.5, and I don't have anything else on. There is actually a tremolo effect on that, but I don't use it very much. And you want to kind of set your amplifier. These modern amps have got a kind of breakup, so they've got a. You want the amplifier to kind of slightly overdrive, to give you a little bit of grittiness. I don't know if you can hear that. That's just the amplifier slightly overloading the signal, slightly overloading the amp, and that's what gives you the kind of nice fat tone. So the great thing about the modern amplifiers is they've got sound attenuators, so you can change the wattage down. So they've got quite a low wattage on this amp, so it's about, I think it's about 0.5 watt or something like that. So the more signal that's going through the amp, the more it's going to distort. So now the other thing I would talk about in terms of tone, for rock and roll sort of stuff, you want quite a nice sort of bright sound. So on the guitar, I generally have the tone generally pretty much. Well, actually, there's no tone on this one, to be honest. But and usually, if there's a tone knob, I would usually have that up quite full, and I normally have the volume up quite loud as well, because I like to get a kind of slightly driven sound. So it's got two pickups on this one, and what I tend to do is I have the bridge pickup on full volume, and I have the neck pickup just turned about halfway. If you turn it too far, it sort of gets a wee bit muddy, so I just like to keep that one off slightly. So I hope that was helpful, Philippe. Was it Philippe? It was Philippe you're asking. So nice to see you all. Give me a comment and a wave or something, so I know what's going on, and say hello, and so I know who's here. It's great to see you. So I was going to do a little beginners. This is the beginners corner section now of the show. So I've got 2 chords. So most people, when they start off, they've got an E chord. So that's open, 2, 2, 1, open, open. I'm guessing you know that chord. And the second chord we usually get is the A chord, which is open on the A, 2 on the D, 2 on the G, 2 on the D, and open. Now that's actually plenty. So you can. One of my favorite beginner songs is a song called Whole Wide World by a guy called Reckless Eric. It's in one of the films. I can't remember what kind of film. It's a wee bit schmaltzy, but Reckless Eric's a brilliant songwriter. He was kind of around the time of Elvis Costello in the 70s. He's still going, I think. Absolutely right, Nigel. So how you play it, you only need 2 chords. You need the E. And what you do is you're just going to do downstrokes. And you see what I'm doing? I'm putting the side of my hand on the guitar, so it's kind of damping it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And we're going to hit the A chord. There's only one girl in the world for you. She probably lives in Tahiti. But go to a wide world, go to a wide world just to find her. Go to a wide world, go to a wide world to find out where they hide her. So that's kind of the whole song. So what I was doing there, I was just on the A, putting my pinky on the 3rd fret of the B, taking it off, and then taking my ring finger off, so it's open B. And this is something we were doing in the Improvers group a couple of weeks ago, just adding notes to chords. just to make little riffs, you can do the E. So it's quite often it's around the third note of the chord. So the third note of the E chord is your G sharp, and you put your pinky on the second fret of the D. So it's a G sharp. Yeah, you got an A. So that's a sus4. So you get D. So you just on a D, you just put your pinky on the third fret. G, open. You can do that, you find lots of notes. So just playing the chords, you can get lots of riffs just out of the basic chords. So that's the beginner's tip of the week. 2 chord classics. Go and find lots of chords. It's lots of songs that have got 2 chords in them, and you'll get a tremendous amount of value out of those 2 chords. I assure you. The chords are, you don't need a lot of them to make rock and roll. That's kind of the point of the thing. So now I'm coming on to my gripe of the week. So I'm quite a grumpy sort of guy, and things annoy me from time to time. And one thing that annoyed me this week was I was buying Plectrums, and I picked up these Plectrums, and I got them home, and they're terrible. They're just really, really flimsy. And what I meant to do is pick up these Plectrums, which are thicker than these Plectrums, but they look exactly the same. So that's just a message to the manufacturers of Plectrums. If you got 2 Plectrums that are kind of in the same ballpark, make them a different color so people like me don't get annoyed. There we go. Thank you very much. But I do admire Dunlop Plectrums, so I'm not slagging the Plectrums themselves, but I'm just slagging the colors of them. So I use them generally all the time. So the next point we're going to come, what was that we've got here? Thank you, Todd. Do you have any tips to sing while playing licks? I mean, playing anything but rhythm strumming, example 20 Flight Rock. I certainly do, Gregoire. Lovely to see you there. So tip I've got, and this something comes up a lot with my students, is when they're starting to play, they get the licks. So for example, 20 Flight Rock. And there's a lot going on. You're sort of thinking about that 3 and 4 on the A. It's difficult to sing. So what I suggest is that you just sing like one line or something like that, or even one word, because what it is, it's actually getting your brain to accept that you're going to do 2 things at once. So it starts off, and then you just add in the next one. I got a girl with a record. I got a girl with a record. I got a girl with a record machine. And actually, as you start to break through that, you can just add the next line on gradually, so that you get the hang of it. I got a girl with a record machine. When it comes to rocking, she's the queen. I love to dance on a Saturday night. So it just sort of, it's just a case, everything about the guitar is just doing little bits at a time. Obviously when you watch people performing, you're seeing the whole thing, you're seeing the finished article. But every guitarist doesn't matter what level they're at. They've got to learn things in small chunks. And when you break it down into small pieces, the guitar's actually not that difficult. It's the fact that we try and do a whole amount of soloing all at once when you start, and that's what makes it complicated. So what you're saying there, Michael, I like Dunlop Plectrums as well while I'm playing guitar as well. What Plectrum millimeter do you play? Good question, Michael. Thank you. So mainly I use the Dunlop green one, actually. That's why I got caught out, I think, with the white ones, which is a 0.88, I believe, but it's the green one. So I tend to just go for the color and maybe not as, what's the word, drilling into detail in terms of the thickness, but I do believe it's 0.88. If I don't know, I've got the back anywhere, but yeah. So generally speaking, the thicker the plectrum you get, the better, or the darker tone, I think it's fair to say. And on an electric guitar, generally speaking, you would be using a thicker plectrum. For some reason, I think it's probably because the strings are a lighter gauge. They seem to respond better to a thicker plectrum. Whereas when I'm playing acoustic, although I do sometimes use a thicker plectrum, I often use a thinner plectrum to get a more brighter sort of sound. And also when you're strumming, certainly if you're new to the guitar, get a thinner plectrum to begin with, because it's far more forgiving when you're strumming in the first stages. So that's a good tip there, because what often happens is people get kind of stuck in the strings when they're going up and down. So that's my tip there. So now come on to the records of the week. So I don't know what you guys are listening to at the moment, but I thought maybe I'd just give you a wee sort of run through of what I've been listening to this week. Now I'm not a trendy guy by any means, but obviously tonight's a very sad night because it's kind of like the anniversary of the plane crash from the Winter Dance Party tour of 1958. So it's all very sad. But so I've been listening to Buddy Holly a lot, and Buddy Holly to me is just the greatest. I just love his music. It's so catchy. And this was bought in Elgin. I don't know if you know where Elgin is, but there's this record shop called Vic Flets in Elgin. This was purchased there for the pricely amount of $2.99. Now, it was a long time ago, to be fair, but still it was tremendous value. So that's an old record. This is a more recent acquisition that I've got. This is the Sonics. Here Are the Sonics, which is the first album I think the Sonics released in 1965. I kind of got into the Sonics. Why did I get into the Sonics? I think I got into them because I watched a live concert that they did in Easy Street in 2016. So it's the same guys, but they're all a lot older. But it just blew me away. So if you have a look for that on YouTube, I'll maybe put a link in the description after this. But Sonics live at Easy Street, and it was just brilliant. It's just fantastic. It's that sort of really kind of raw 60s garage sound, which I really like. And this album's fabulous. I think I prefer the second side more than the first side, but the first side is pretty good. But the second side is just like rocking from start to finish. And their version of Money, track 2 on side 2, I think that's the best version of Money I've heard. So Jerry Lee Lewis does a fab version on his live at the Star Club, and I think it was 1964. That's a great album as well. Jerry Lee Lewis live at the Star Club. That's my favourite live album of all time. But that's a great album as well. So I've been listening to the Undertones, a band from Derry in Northern Ireland, who are I think they're kind of back in the scene, touring again. One of the guys that's on our course, Phil, he's a huge Undertones fan. He's seen them like 104 times or something like that. But I've always loved them too, and I found this record. It was I was walking up George Street in Edinburgh. And one day there'd obviously been a domestic argument or something like that. And in the middle of the road, cars were driving over all these records in the middle of the street. So I jumped out into traffic and I picked all these records up. This was one of them. And I don't know how many times we've been driven over by a car, but it plays fine. And it's just a brilliant record. So I got some great records out of that. So every cloud's got a silver lining. I don't know what happened to the original owner of the records, but I suspect his wife had just chucked the records out the window of the car or something like that. So it's quite sad, but I actually feel a wee bit guilty about it now when I think about it. But anyway, I was very young at the time. So so there we are. So that's this is another record. I'm starting to feel bad about that. This is London Calling by The Clash, another great album of mine, favourite of mine. I've had it on cassette tape for a long time, but I started buying some of the stuff that I used to have when I was poor and first starting out. And this one's got some of the greatest Clash songs on it. I mean, The Clash are just a brilliant band, but if you're into rockabilly like I am and you're into rock and roll, this has got so many great songs on it. One of my favourites is Really Can't Fail. Brand New Cadillac, the cover they did of Vince Taylor and the Playboys, another favourite of mine. I'm not actually a big fan of London Calling. That's not. I never thought that song was all that great for some reason. But anyway, that's just me. So, and lastly and not least, the Who. I've been listening to the Who a bit. I've been studying Pete Townshend's guitar style. We've been doing a little bit of that in the groups and stuff. And this is great. You know, a lot of these songs were never released. So things like Circles, Disguises, Bucket Tea, Batman, Barbara Ann, In the City. It was the B-side to I'm a Boy. But a lot of them, I don't know, they must have just been demo tracks. They never released them, but they're great, really good. That period of the Who, when they first started out, the first album, it's just amazing. So yeah, really good. So that's it. So tell me what you're listening to. Drop a few notes in the comments. Toy, you've been listening to a lot of Joe Strummer. Yeah, he's a genius. I don't think he really. I think his later career wasn't really valued. I think it was such a tough act to follow when he did the Clash. It's a bit like the Beatles when they did their solo stuff. Nobody looked at it in as much depth as the original band stuff. But yeah, he's a tremendous songwriter. What's that? You got the first Clash album in the car today, Nigel? Yeah, that's brilliant. I used to have that in the house when I was a young boy. Quite a strict upbringing. There was definitely boundaries which could not be crossed. So I used to smuggle all these punk records, and I don't know if they ever find out, but yeah, I had the Clash, and we used to play at quite a low volume until the parents were out, then we'd turn it up. What are you saying, Rick? Can't believe it's Friday night. Or flown in. I'm having a doo-wop session this week with a bit of Dion too. Quite right, Rick. Good. The Wanderer. Cheers, everybody. I don't know if you've got what you're drinking tonight. I've got a few options on I've got the drinks cabinet out. It's just out of a camera shot, but my wife's made me a lovely Cosmopolitan. So cheers. So I don't know. I don't think Breck's Bicycle is here, but I'm going to do I don't know if Keith is here. He said he was going to be here as well, but I'm just going to do a quick breakdown of Shake, Rattle and Roll, which was requested. So it's actually easier for me to do this in this format than actually making videos in a way. So I can probably get through a lot more stuff if you've got requests and stuff, and I've got time. I'll try and explain stuff as best I can. So Shake, Rattle and Roll, it's sort of it's a sort of Scotty Moore standard. It was obviously Bill Haley in the comments made it famous, but the Elvis version is really good. So it's in the key of F. So the way I play a lot of this stuff, if it's in a key like F or B flat, what I often do is just use a capo. And then you can just use your normal cowboy chord. So this is effectively an E shape. And what I'm doing is I'm just finger picking. So I'm just pulling my fingers on and off. So the first finger is going on to the G. So open E, D and E, and then you put your pinky on the B. So you hit the E again. Go E, D and E, B on the second fret, 2 on the D. So remember the words. Yeah, that kitchen, watch this person play. And this is a classic Scotty riff where he's playing an A7, and you're going so 3 on the E and 5 on the B. So that's kind of like the melody. A7. And then it goes shake, rattle, and roll. So you just come up to the well, it's the 13th fret effectively, but it's the 12th fret when you don't have the cap on. A7. So that's a classic Scotty Moore lick. So he's actually starting off, if you notice, he's got the pinky on the C. And then he's sort of going into, so what is that actually? So it's B. So it's, yes, so he's playing the B, kind of like B major. So he's got his, what would be the B, but it's a C because it's got the cap on the first fret. So he's actually playing B major because he's starting with his pinky on the root. And he's actually going into sort of B minor pentatonic. That's B minor. That's E. Yeah, the kitchen watchman pots and pans. Yeah, the kitchen watchman pots and pans. Shake, roll, shake, roll. So yeah, that was for Keith. It's maybe just a little bit tricky doing that because it's always difficult when you're doing finger picking to actually. It's much easier to tell people how to play single line stuff than it is. Thank you, Nigel. So that's that. So then the other thing was I had a request for a bit of REM, which is not really kind of what I do, but we're doing it in the beginners class the other day, and it's quite a good one. So it's The One I Love by REM. It's another kind of quite a good beginner song. So you're playing an E minor chord, so that's 2 on the A and the D. And you just sort of strum it and then kind of drag your pick across the strings. D. And this is what I'm talking about, taking a finger off and on just gives you a little bit of a riff. And then just play that. That D, that third fret of the B gives you an E minor 7. This one goes out to the one I love. This one goes out to the one I left behind. Super bright. So that's a G, D, C. Again, I'm just lifting fingers up. This one goes out to same thing, you might know that's E minor. So yeah, it's just E minor, G, D, and C. No, not too much going on there. But starting on the E minor makes it more interesting. So it's going from E minor to D, which is kind of like whenever you go back the way. So whenever you start on a D chord, for example, then you go back to a C. It's quite often you hear people doing that in songwriting because it just sort of slightly changes the sort of key in terms of how the listener hears it. So it's so you hear that sometimes in 1 cup of coffee and a cigarette. Well, 1 cup of coffee and a cigarette. That's Brixicle, you're here. That's good, because I have done a little bit of work on You and I Are Through. So yeah, we're going to break that one down. I can do that now. So again, this is another case of you need to get yourself a capo. So if you get a capo and you put it on the first fret, life gets a lot easier. So I just had a wee look at it earlier. I don't know if you can hear what I'm doing here, but if I play this back. Did anyone hear that, what I played there? Maybe it doesn't come through. Maybe you can't hear the sound. But anyway, that was it. So anyway, so the start of it is open on the E, 2 on the E, 4 on the E, A. Then we're going to effectively play an A chord, but we've got the thing on the first fret, so it's a B flat. And that is an E chord. So you're playing a D shape at the 4th fret, and I put my pinky onto the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th fret. So A, E, F sharp, then B, then it's C minor, then it's A, and back to E. Actually, that's an E, and E's A7. Then you're going to play a D minor, A, B, country bridge, E, and back to the beginning. A, E, F sharp. I'm doing the wrong rhythm. And B, E, E. So that's the whole thing, Brixicle. Hope that was helpful. So it's not that difficult once this is the trick. When you're transcribing stuff, you have to kind of listen. If it's a funny key, generally speaking, they're using a capo. And that's a bit of a game changer when I worked that one out. So, and the other thing to bear in mind is you've got to tune your guitar. You've got to make sure you're in tune. The other thing that can sometimes cause problems is that in the studio, occasionally, the producers in the 50s, they sped the thing up just slightly, just to kind of give it more energy before they actually made the record. So sometimes they're not actually in key at all, and that's really annoying. So you have to almost retune your guitar to the record, which is a bit tricky. What's that you're saying, Rick? T-Rex Jeepster is a rockabilly song to me, and I mean the polka's down too. Yeah. So how does that one go again? That's probably. So yeah, all that is. So you're just going up, open 2, 4, which you hear that a lot as well. And I've got the Buddy Holly rhythm in my head now. I'm trying to get the T-Rex one in my head. And then the sort of magic chord is when you're in the key of A, you don't expect a C chord. And it walks down in the C to and it goes up to D. Just a cheap stuff. something like that. I've been learning Flare of My Heart and Got to Get Near You Blues by Buddy Holly. They're awesome. Well, it'd be good to hear some of that stuff. So what I might do, if folk are up for it, is actually get a wee open mic night. I've tried this before and I've not had a huge amount of take up in it. But if I can get confidence that we're going to get enough people, then I'll do an open mic, because it doesn't really work if nobody plays anything. I mean, some people do, but it's not being that many people. It's better if you get a good crowd of folks. So I'm trying to think if I've got anything else for you folks. I think that's pretty much it. We've done the transcribing. Just to say thank you very much for watching, and I'll probably be back this time next week, all being well, and just keep rocking. Keep telling me what you're up to, give me some comments. We've got a community channel on the channel, which is I don't know if you know where that is, but in the channel there's along the top there's different tabs. If you go to the community channel, then you can communicate with me if you've got requests or anything like that. We can have a look at them this time next week. Okay, thank you everybody, and look after yourselves and have a great weekend. Keep rocking. All the best. Thank you.